Okay, the first question is, tell me about a time when you faced a challenging technical problem in a project. How did you approach it and what was the outcome? In this video, we're going to talk about some example answer, why it works well, and what you should avoid saying. Here's a good answer. In my previous role, I worked on a high traffic API system where we noticed intermittent failures during peak usage. The errors were unpredictable, often tied to concurrent requests, and were difficult to reproduce in a test environment. This challenge was critical because any failure during high traffic hours affected our service reliability. To tackle it, I began by analyzing logs to identify any common patterns. I found that the errors were occurring during specific database interactions, hinting that our system might have been facing a race condition or resource contention. Given the unpredictable nature, I realized a systematic approach was needed. I proposed two parallel solutions. One, improving observability. I added detailed logging around suspect database transactions to capture the execution path, latencies, and connection states without overwhelming our logging system. Two, simulating load. I created a controlled environment that could simulate peak traffic with a similar data load and usage patterns. Using this, I could reproduce the issue more consistently. After analyzing the test results, I identified that the issue stemmed from a bottleneck caused by an unoptimized database query during concurrent access. I collaborated with the database team to optimize the query and added a caching layer for high-frequency requests. This improved our system's handling of high traffic, reducing errors by 90%. In the end, this experience taught me the importance of a methodical approach in debugging and reinforced the value of collaboration. Not only did we resolve the issue, but we also strengthened our system's overall resilience. This project has made me more attentive to observability and proactive performance optimization in my work. Why this works? It should work well because 1. Structured approach clearly lays out the steps taken to address the issue. 2. Problem-solving skills demonstrates logical debugging and effective collaboration. 3. Impact quantifies the improvement and shows how the experience led to a better development mindset, aligning with companies' focus on growth and continual improvement. What you should avoid saying. 1. Avoid blaming others. What not to say. Don't place blame on teammates, previous engineers, or other departments for the problem. Phrases like, the database team messed up, or this was a flaw in the old code someone else wrote, can reflect poorly on your collaboration and ownership skills. 2. Avoid vague descriptions of the problem. What not to say. Avoid general statements like, I had a performance issue, without explaining specific details. For example, saying, there was a bottleneck, so I fixed it doesn't give insight into your thought process or technical approach. 3. Avoid skipping over the solution process. What not to say. A response that jumped straight from problem identification to outcome without explaining the steps you took is incomplete. For instance, saying, I noticed a bug and fixed it, and it improved performance, lacks the technical detail. 4. Don't dismiss the problem as easy or minimize your efforts. What not to say. Avoid diminishing the problem or your solution with comments like, it was a quick fix, or I just optimized a query. It wasn't a big deal. 5. Avoid being overly technical or losing focus on communication. What not to say. Be cautious about going too deep into technical jargon without context, such as saying, I use specific indexing and normalization techniques to resolve cache miss rates with hash maps if the terms aren't clearly relevant. 6. Avoid focusing solely on the outcome without reflection. What not to say. Don't end the story with, the issue was fixed and performance improved, without a reflection on what you learned or how you'd handle similar issues in the future. Thanks for watching. For more tech interview questions, please go to bowsiate.com. Okay, the second question is, what do you think are your weaknesses? This is actually a very tricky question, and in this video, we're going to talk about some example answer, why it works well, and what you should avoid saying. Here's a good answer. One area I'm actively working on is managing time effectively during code reviews. I tend to be very thorough, wanting to catch every possible edge case or optimization opportunity, which can sometimes mean I spend more time than necessary on a single review. I've realized that this approach, while well intentioned, can create delays, especially if several people are waiting on my feedback. To address this, I've started setting structured time limits for each review phase. For instance, I initially go over high level architecture and major logic rather than diving into minor details right away. This allows me to give faster feedback while ensuring that the essentials are solid before we proceed with smaller refinements. I've also asked for feedback from my team, which has been really helpful in understanding how my comments are received and identifying which areas are most helpful to focus on. Over time, I've become better at balancing thoroughness with efficiency, and I've seen positive impacts in terms of quicker review cycles and better collaboration with my teammates. Now, another one. One of my weaknesses is that I sometimes struggle to delegate tasks effectively. I often find myself wanting to ensure every detail is perfect, which can make it hard to let go of certain responsibilities and trust others to handle them. Early in my career, this led to a bit of a bottleneck on my end and slowed down team projects. Recently, I've been working to improve in this area. I've learned to identify tasks that can be handed off and to clearly outline expectations and deadlines. For example, on a recent project, I created detailed documentation and offered regular check ins instead of trying to manage everything myself. Not only did this help me manage my workload better, but it also gave my teammates a chance to grow. I'm still working on building this habit, but I've seen positive results in both my productivity and team dynamics. Why this works? It should work well because 1. Acknowledges a real weakness. It highlights a genuine area for improvement. 2. Shows self awareness. By recognizing how the behavior affects others, it demonstrates emotional intelligence and understanding of teamwork. 3. Highlights proactive steps. The answer explains steps taken to improve, which shows a growth oriented mindset. 4. Ends on a positive note. By reflecting on the improvement and the impact of these adjustments, it leaves the interviewer with a sense of optimism and adaptability. What you should avoid saying. 1. Avoid weaknesses that are actually strengths in disguise. Statements like, I'm a perfectionist or I care too much about my work might come across as insincere or evasive. Interviewers see through these humble brag answers and may think you're avoiding genuine self reflection. 2. Don't mention critical skills for the role. Avoid mentioning weaknesses directly related to core competencies needed for the job. For example, if applying for a software engineering role, saying, I struggle with time management when coding, or I'm not great at debugging, could raise red flags. If the weakness is a key aspect of the job, the interviewer might question your ability to succeed in the role. 3. Avoid vague or generalized weaknesses. Responses like, I'm not great at communicating, or I struggle with organization, without any specifics can sound like you're unaware of how the weakness impacts your work or what you're doing to improve. If you mention a communication weakness, for example, explain in what context, like presenting complex technical concepts to non technical audiences, and describe how you're working on it. 4. Steer clear of overly negative or unresolved weaknesses. Avoid weaknesses that could make the interviewer think you're not suited for a professional environment, like saying, I get frustrated easily, or I tend to procrastinate. If you can't discuss constructive actions or improvement plans, these weaknesses may reflect poorly on your self management skills. 5. Don't make excuses or blame others. Saying things like, I struggle with deadlines because my team often misses them suggests you're unwilling to take responsibility for your own growth. Even if circumstances contribute to challenges, emphasize your personal steps to improve instead of shifting blame. Thanks for watching. For more tech interview questions, please go to bowsiate.com. Okay, the next question is, describe a time when you had to work with a difficult teammate. How did you handle the situation? Here's a good answer. In a previous role, I was working on a new feature for a product, and one of my teammates had a very different approach to the design than I did. While I preferred a more straightforward and modular approach, they leaned towards a complex, highly customized solution. This led to disagreements, and I could tell it was affecting our ability to work cohesively as a team. I quickly recognized that continuing to debate without understanding each other's perspectives could derail the project timeline. To address this, I set up a meeting specifically to align on our goals for the project and understand why each of us favored our respective approaches. During the meeting, I actively listened to their reasoning without interrupting. This helped me see their approach had merit for addressing certain edge cases that my solution might not handle as well. After they finished, I shared my perspective, emphasizing scalability and future maintenance. To find a middle ground, I suggested we build a quick prototype for each approach and benchmark them against our performance requirements. My teammate agreed, and we worked together to build and test both versions. This collaborative exercise not only improved the feature itself, but also helped us build mutual respect and trust. Ultimately, we combined elements from both approaches into a hybrid solution that was both modular and could handle the edge cases efficiently. Reflecting on this experience, I learned the value of open communication and the importance of focusing on the project's goals rather than personal preferences. This experience reinforced my belief in using healthy collaboration to turn different viewpoints into a stronger final product. Why this works? It should work well because 1. Shows emotional intelligence. By acknowledging the challenge, the response demonstrates empathy and understanding that differences in approach are natural, but can be managed with the right communication. 2. Highlights collaboration and problem solving. Rather than focusing on the difficulty, the answer emphasizes collaborative problem solving. 3. Reflects growth and self-awareness. Concluding with a lesson learned shows that you're adaptable, reflective, and committed to continuous improvement. What you should avoid saying. 1. Avoid blaming the teammate entirely. Don't describe the teammate as difficult in an overly negative or personal way. For example, avoid saying things like, they just never listened to anyone else or they didn't know what they were doing. Blaming a teammate entirely for the conflict can make you come across as unwilling to take responsibility or unable to see the bigger picture. 2. Avoid downplaying your own role in the situation. Even if you weren't the main source of the conflict, it's best not to make yourself sound like the only reasonable person in the situation. Statements like, I tried to be the bigger person while they wouldn't compromise, can make you seem condescending or inflexible. 3. Don't focus solely on the negative aspects. Avoid giving an answer that dwells on the difficulties without showing how you address the issues. Saying something like, it was frustrating to work with them because they always wanted to do things their way, without a follow-up about what you did to improve collaboration can make it seem like you're venting or unprepared to handle such situations constructively. 4. Avoid highlighting ongoing, unresolved conflict. While you may not always reach a perfect resolution, it's better to focus on situations where you actively sought and achieved some level of compromise or progress. Responses like, I still don't think they were very collaborative, and it impacted our team's results, imply that you are quick to hold grudges or place blame, which may raise concerns about your team-oriented skills. 5. Don't mention only external solutions, like involving a manager. Try to avoid describing a situation where your primary response was to escalate to a manager or someone outside the team. Focus instead on steps you personally took to solve the issue. If escalation was necessary, show how you used it constructively to enable communication rather than simply to shift responsibility. Thanks for watching. For more tech interview questions, please go to bowsiate.com.